We are really the beacon and the model for the rest of the country and the rest of the world. We went from the biggest economic renaissance in the history of the United States. It was due to us, D.C. residents and natives, who went from the worst of the 80s and the 90s to this economic boom, and that was done by us, and that's going to continue.
We're probably the best city in the world right now, and everyone's saying that today. So let's spread that around. Let's make this an inclusive city that everyone can be proud of that lives here.
I am looking forward to Mayor Bowser, the council, and the Attorney General to continue the focus on serving the whole city and to lifting up our most vulnerable residents.
I would like to see more affordable housing for the seniors, low income. I also would like to see more business opportunities for people who want to open small businesses.
We had to find a way to get more small businesses to own their buildings, so some type of homestead act. So we need to be more innovative to small businesses so local people can own and still contribute to the fabric and the economic viability of Washington, D.C.
I look forward to Mayor Bowser strengthening the connection between the police and the community, and I would also like to see transportation driving more and seeing what we can do to make it safer for the community.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mayor Bowser's second term outlook. All right, thank you. We're really excited to have you here tonight. My name is Jenny Reed, and I'm the Mayor's Director of Budget and Performance Management. And I'm joined by three esteemed panelists tonight to talk to you about investing in our priorities. So tonight we have Neil Albert, former City Administrator and current Director of the Downtown Bid. We have Mayor Williams, former two-term Mayor of the District of Columbia and current Director of the Federal City Council. And Jeffrey DeWitt, our current Chief Financial Officer. Let's give him a round of applause. Great. So we want to talk a little bit about investing in our values. As each of you know, budgets are really where priorities are set, and we make investments that help shape our city now and into the future. So I want to talk with each of you about the key investments made during your tenure and how you think those investments helped lay the foundation for the city that we see today. So let me start with you, Mayor Williams. When you were mayor, you made major economic development and housing really key platforms of your time in office. How did you come to these priorities, and how do you think they shape the city today?
Well, one way of thinking about, first of all, I want to congratulate our mayor for entering the second term club, so give our mayor a big hand for. And I give you and the mayor and everybody my commendation for one, having priorities, because a lot of people in public office don't really think about prioritizing, but as importantly, really involving the community in setting those priorities. So I commend all of you for being here, and certainly everybody on the mayor's team. You all do a great job, and you're not often appreciated, so I want to thank you for the work that you do. So if you think that, give yourselves a big hand, you do a great job. So if you want to think about the way I thought about the city was, I had been the CFO, I really thought about it from a financial point of view. When I came in as mayor, we weren't talking about fine tuning or adjusting the air conditioning. We were talking about trying to get the car back on the road. So how do you really restore some of the basic revenue flows to the city? Sales tax, income tax, property tax, what are some of the investments we have to make to build that solid foundation? But if you think more broadly, and I don't want to sound like Obi-Wan Kenobi, but the way I thought about the city was, because we were broken and we were rebuilding our city, how do you restore the public realm? So, in Richard II, you had a private realm of the king. Here in our American democracy, how do you restore the public realm? The first order of business in the public realm is restoring public trust, stewardship, accountability, statehood, self-determination. All those are key to restoring the public realm. So that's paying your bills on time, building the public coffers, building our public finances, building public services, Mayor Fenty, rebuilding public education. All those are building blocks to restoring a livable city. So then, if you set a goal of 100,000 people, you've got a chance of meeting that goal because you're putting in place those building blocks centered on public trust. Does that make sense?
Yep,
Okay.
that's great. Thank you. I want to ask you, Neil, so Mayor Williams mentioned during the Fenty administration when you were city administrator that there was a big investment in education, particularly in school facilities. What made you all focus on that, and what do you think are some of the impacts for the city today as a result?
So the mayor knocked, Mayor Fenty, that is, and I had the pleasure of working for Mayor Williams also, knocked on every door in D.C. when he was campaigning, and he heard loud and clear from the residents that we needed to do something about education in the city. So when he was elected, his single, I wouldn't say his singular focus, but one of the major focus areas was on education reform. And from the day he was elected in the primary, he started focusing on it. And so all of the transition actions and activities became focused on how do we create the best education system in Washington, D.C. And what that meant was doing things differently and shaking up the status quo. So we went from having a school board to that was elected, and there's something to be said about elected school boards, to having an education system that was controlled by the executive. The mayor went out and hired, I think, the best and the brightest to run our education system, including our school's chancellor back in the day, Michelle Rhee. Some of you may have heard about her. But in addition, the mayor focused every agency's attention on this primary goal. So whether it was on developing the capital budget or on selecting social services and other supports, the primary focus was on ensuring that we could make these 100,000 people that Mayor Williams is trying to bring into the city have wonderful experiences in our public school system.
You mentioned the capital budget, and I wanted to ask the CFO, since you've been our CFO, you've really, helped us focus on the infrastructure in the city and making really critical investments in roads and alleys and metro. Why do you think focusing on infrastructure is so important? And as you sort of look for the next 4 years, what is our financial outlook in terms of the ability to make new investments in this and other areas?
Well, it was probably about 5.5 years ago I first met the mayor. She was a council member at the time, and one of her questions to me was, we've got a $26 billion metro problem. If you come here, what are you going to do about it? And I almost said I just won't come here. But since then, and it's been very impressive, the things that have gone on. We have now what's considered one of the best long-range capital financial planning processes in the world, and I do mean in the world. Australia, France, and other countries are actually coming to talk to us about it. And it goes back to what Mayor Williams says. It sets forward a process where you know what you have, you know the quality of it, you know what your priorities are. It gets back to the priority question, and you know how much money you have. So you do long-range financial planning. You know every asset you have, the quality of it, what it costs to defer, what it costs if you defer it, and all these other things. And that's what was going on with Metro. Metro was being deferred. And it got to the point that something had to be done. And so with a tool like that, and with the mayor, she uses the tool. And not every administration would take something like that. You have all the information you need. And as you know, the capital program that the district has is priority-based. It's the most important things that meet the priorities of schools, affordable housing, homelessness, and all those types of issues, which are the core of making the city a place where you want to live, work, and play, and be at all the time, which causes us to get to over 700,000 people, which causes us to have the reserves we have, which has resulted in us being able to fully fund our pensions and our retiree health care, and those types of things. So we're in some of the best financial condition, in spite of what you're hearing on the news about the government shutdown. We are in some of the best financial condition of any large city in the United States, and we are now in the top. We're the 20th largest city in the United States. So the focus on, if you want to grow the city and you want to be financially healthy, you got to have good roads and streets and a good metro system and quality facilities for people to go to school and quality buildings for government to work and provide services in, and good equipment like fire trucks and things like that. And we now know what we can afford and when we can afford it. And we can prioritize that to get it done as expeditiously as possible. And so that puts us in a situation of knowing how to fix all of our infrastructure by 2028, which no city in America can say. And you look at the budget that the mayor approved last year and that you submitted and the council approved last year, roads and streets, the primary roads and streets are to a state of good repair by 2024. You can't find any other city in America that can say that. So we are in rarefied air in terms of what we're doing, and other cities across the world are looking at what we're doing, and it is about setting priorities, which is done very, very well by the mayor and yourself and all the people that participate that, and we should all be very proud of that. But it's not without challenges, because we never have enough money because there are so many needs. There's so many things that need to get done. But it's about prioritizing, like Mayor Williams said.
Yeah. So one of the things that, I think is indicative is that from what you all have been saying, is the city's really changed a lot in the time that you all have been here. And we've seen a lot of progress. Our population is growing. Our finances are very strong, some of the strongest in the nation. We just got our first AAA bond rating, which we're really excited about. Our school enrollment is up, unemployment is down, overall crime is down. So we have a lot of things to celebrate, but we know a lot of those successes come with challenges as well. There are people in the city who maybe aren't able to join in as much. And so a focus of the mayors over the last 4 years has really been about providing people a fair shot and really understanding how we can help everyone participate in the boom times that we're seeing. So from the investments you've seen over the last 4 years from the mayor, or from areas that you think we need in the city, what are some of the most important areas to focus on investing in order to make sure that everyone has that fair shot? I'll sort of throw out one example that I think of from the first term, which is the investments the mayor has made in the Homer DC plan to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. As a result of those investments, homelessness has decreased by 17% in the last 4 years. And so we've seen really good changes as a result of that. So from your time here, what do you think are some important areas for us to keep investing in the future?
Sure. So I think this administration, the mayor, has done a good job of balancing the investments. Speaking selfishly, I really appreciate the investments that the mayor is making in homeless services. On any given day in downtown DC, there's about 150 people experiencing homelessness on the streets. And I said this on a radio interview last week, this administration has invested more in homeless services than any other administration, but not at the detriment of other priorities in the District of Columbia. So there's been investments in the infrastructure of the city. We're still building bridges and building schools, but this administration, this mayor, is focused on the people who need the help the most, as evidenced by the investment in homeless services.
Great.
One of the mayor's priorities, and the one that a lot of money's been put into, and necessarily so, affordable housing. That is a continued challenge in the district to make sure that we can keep the characteristics and the quality of life in the district and making housing affordable. Having just bought a place not long ago, I can certainly relate to that. The other one, though, I will throw out is because we're in the 21st century and we want to attract the best and brightest to the district, is technology. Making sure we have the things like, and I'll talk about my area of the OCFO, where you can do your taxes online. People demand a higher quality of service than they ever had before. So it's that investment in the technology resources to provide the services that our residents expect. And that's a hard one sometimes.
And Mayor Williams, at the Federal City Council, you all have had a big focus on education and workforce development. As you look back on the investments we made in the last 4 years, what do you think were some of the strongest investments, and what do you think about where we should be heading in the next 4 years?
I think one of the great things happened in D.C. is now over the last however many years it is since the control board period, things have accreted positively. So you've had people like Neil from one administration to another administration to another administration, some of the folks here, and I think that continuity of good government builds a strong platform so that when you have a mayor like our mayor now, well, she doesn't look at this strong platform and say, well, I'm just going to sit out on the platform on a chaise lounge. How do I use this platform and really propel forward for the city? I think what you all did with a home, and I say this when security allows me to be next to the mayor and I introduce her, I say, You know, I think what you all did in the homeless initiative was huge. That's a huge deal to be able to close DC General and provide homes for people. Give yourselves a big hand. It's a huge deal. So now that things are moving positively, the mayor is moving the city forward. I think she has a very powerful bully pulpit. And one of the big things I would do as mayor is really lead the effort of this whole area, the DMV. How do we really capitalize now on Amazon coming across the river? Because if you talk to any urban planner, across the river is essentially here. So how do we really use that to our benefit in all the ways we're talking about? She has a platform, she has a capability. I think she can call that question.
Great, thank you. So you all have been seeing the slides behind us as we've been talking, and I think that from the investments you see that we've made over the last 4 years, you can tell that when we talk about investing in our priorities, what the mayor is really focused on are equity, affordability, sustainability, inclusivity, and mobility across the city. And as we continue in the panels tonight, and when you hear from the mayor later, you're going to hear how we're going to continue to invest in those priorities and others over the next 4 years. But we need your help too. We don't do this alone. And so in your program on the back, you're going to see a set of dates for Fair Shot February. These are our public engagement sessions throughout the month of February, where we invite you to come give us ideas about how to invest in our priorities. We're excited to continue our budget engagement forum work and lots of other important areas. So I want to take a minute to thank our panelists for joining us tonight for this evening. Thank you. And now we'll turn it back to the program for a short video.
Honorable Mayor of the District of Columbia, Mama Muriel Bowser.
Keep their hands off DC.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Maestera, and I am the Interim Deputy Chancellor for Innovation and Systems Improvement at the DC Public Schools. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today to lead a discussion about a bold vision for education and workforce development. I'd like to start by introducing our panelists. To my left, we have Unique Morris Hughes, Director of the District of Columbia, Department of Employment Services. Welcome. We have Hansul Kang, State Superintendent of Education. And we have Ronald Mason, President of the University of the District of Columbia. Welcome. Welcome, panelists. So just to set the stage, we know that education and workforce development are key drivers of communities in which all residents have a fair shot. The mayor has posed an important question to all of us in recent months, which is, what would we do if we weren't afraid to fail? And so with that as our backdrop, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this important work, and we're going to look at this in a couple of different ways. First, panelists, I'd like your feedback on what stands out to you as our biggest successes over the past 4 years in the education and workforce domain. And also, if you could touch on it, what types of partnerships do you think have been critical to achieve these successes? I'll start with you, Unique.
Yeah, so I would say that a few of our biggest successes, well, in general, writ large, is really expanding access and increasing quality, but doing it through a lens of equity. And so at the DC Department of Employment Services, we have worked really, really hard to make sure that no matter where you are in life, that you have a fair shot and that you can come to the DC Department of Employment Services and receive impactful, helpful training. So first, I would say, under the leadership of the mayor, expanding the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program to the age of 24. Yep. And so I would argue that we already had a pretty strong structure in place for SYEP, but expanding access, providing the necessary wraparound services like case management, making sure that our staff was trauma informed and understood how to deal with young people, especially between the ages of 18 and 24, that may have experienced trauma in their life, I think raised the bar of the SYEP program and quality. The second is the work that we're doing with returning citizens. Right now, through our Project Empowerment Program, it is a nationally recognized program. So regardless of what has happened to you prior to coming to DOES, you can get occupational skills that's impactful. So no longer training just to train. It's something that we are very proud of, that you can come to us, get life-altering training, and then be prepared and positioned for a career. So that's a few of our successes that in workforce in DC.
Great, thank you. And I hear the theme of equity, which also is a priority for the mayor, and I think you'll hear that throughout our discussion today. Hansul, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, first on the early childhood front, as the mayor often likes to say, we are going through a baby boom as a city, and so one of the big things we have done is on one of the slides here, we've continued to invest in creating 1,000 new seats across the city for infants and toddlers to make sure that families at all income levels can increase their access to quality care for their youngest children. And that's certainly been work that's been done in partnership with childcare providers who've helped us understand their needs and the barriers that keep them from expanding or opening a new operation. And so we're working to address those needs to create 1,000 new seats. It's also been done in partnership with other government agencies, with DGS, which is creating new childcare facilities at government buildings, and with our partners at DCRA and FEMS, who help make sure that a new operation opening meets all the safety checks that are needed, but to keep our children safe. And then on the K-12 side, I think one big area that I would point to as a success has been increasing increasing families' access to information and understanding of school quality and school options across the city. So last month, we were able to launch the new DC School Report Card, which was built in partnership with families. We heard from over 4,000 voices of parents and community members that helped inform the development of this new tool, and that was only made possible because of the partnership of many community organizations and schools and local education agencies, as well as those individual parents and community members. And I think that's a real stride forward for our city, both in increasing access to information and driving understanding of the quality options that are available.
Great, thank you very much. Ron, could you touch on this as well, please?
Yeah, besides seeing the mayor wear a UDC cap at that rally and that video, which was a big accomplishment, I can think of 3 things over the last 4 years. One, enabling the district to remember how important and special its institution of higher learning is. As the public institution of higher learning in and for the nation's capital, that's the only exclusively urban land-grant university in the country. It really is a special place, and we were able to, I think, bring back that memory. Second, the DC Up initiative, which was really an idea of the mayor's, which is where we were able to attract, that's the DC University Partnership. We've been able to attract high-performing graduates from DC public and public charter schools. And so we started out with 20, now it's almost 200, and it's really changed the perception of UDC as a first-choice institution. And then I think the third was being able to work with the entire span of the district to develop our new strategic plan, the equity imperative, completing the pathways to the middle class. I think that really has laid out a great laid the groundwork for a great plan for the future of the institution, and having the mayor say that this past budget year was a down payment on the future of that plan was an even greater accomplishment.
Great, thank you very much. So now looking forward into the next term, and if you could think about lessons learned from the work we've done, what do we need to do over the next 4 years to truly create that fair shot for all of our citizens? And any of you can feel free to jump in here.
On the early childhood side, I would say, I think actually across both early childhood and K-12 education, I think the real focus is continuing to focus on quality and the quality of services and the equity of access to those services. I think specifically on the early childhood side, that means making sure that both in our infant toddler programming, but then also in our pre-K programs, that we're ensuring all of our students reach kindergarten ready to learn, ready and prepared for the rest of their academic careers. So that means improving our quality of infant toddler care and learning, improving the quality of our pre-K programs, and ensuring that our most vulnerable families, really at all levels, get access to the highest quality programming. And then on the K-12 side, I think it also is continuing to focus on quality and thinking in particular about our people, our educators and our school leaders, and making sure that when it comes to recruitment, but also development and support and retention and opportunities for leadership, that all of our teachers and all of our school leaders have the supports they need to make sure that we have the highest quality possible educators in front of our children every day.
Great, thank you. Unique?
I would offer 2 things. One, to strategically connect with secondary pathways for career and technical education, or VOTEC 2.0. I think we have a real opportunity to introduce careers in the world of work to our young people in a way that's meaningful and impactful. And what I know about vocational education is that it's all about options and exploring. And so I think our young people deserve an opportunity to explore in the world of work. The second, and my staff will tell you that there's probably 2 or 3 things that you hear from me, but it's jobs, jobs, jobs. We are doubling down even harder on getting people prepared for opportunities in this region. We believe that the residents of the District of Columbia are the greatest asset here in DC in terms of human capital and the talent pool. And so we want people regionally to understand that it's game on, we're competitive, and we're ready and prepared for work.
Great, thank you. Ron.
I think it's important to continue to develop all of public higher education, all of public education, in my case, higher education, and to continue to develop UDC as a national model for what education ought to be at the highest levels. That is the 3 doors in, workforce training, open enrollment, and selective admissions that lead, each door leading to the next door with stackable credentials so that we can take every student wherever they are and enable them to reach their highest level of human potential, whatever that is at that point in time. And I think if we can do that, then we can actually be a model for where higher education wants to go. The second thing that I think that is important is to connect the dots in education. I had a really great conversation with the incoming chancellor of the K-12 system, and to be able to look at public education in the district starting at P and going all the way up through to 16 and connecting the dots in that way, I think is going to enable not only the residents of the district to have a brighter future, but the district as a whole.
Yes, thank you. That articulation is so important from the start. So what I've heard throughout our conversation is that we have some very committed leaders who are not afraid to take those chances on thinking big, and as you said, being ready to roll. We also know that collaboration and partnership certainly matter, and we have a really unique opportunity in DC with the proximity of all of our organizations to work well together, and we know how to do that work well. And last, I hear the fact that you are all courageous and bold leaders, and so I feel like we're in very good shape as we move forward in the next term, and that we can together meet the mayor's call to action to be courageous, bold, and not afraid to fail. And so I want to thank you all and ask you all to join me in thanking these inspiring leaders we have here today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think we can all agree that housing affordability is a critical issue in the district today. As the mayor shared in her inaugural address, the administration has made significant strides in producing affordable housing. She also emphasized that there's still more to do. She has challenged everyone to think differently and more boldly about housing so that DC can continue to be a home to residents of all incomes. My name is Andrew Trueblood. I'm the acting director of the DC Office of Planning, and I'm excited to be joined by a distinguished panel of experts in creating and financing affordable housing in DC. We have Polly Donaldson, the director of the Department of Housing and Community Development. Brian Kenner, the deputy mayor for Planning and Economic Development. And Sheila Miller, who is both the managing principal at Madison Capital Advisors and a board member at the DC Housing Finance Agency. Director Donaldson, I want to start with you. Give us a look back at what the administration has accomplished with housing over the last 4 years.
It's been an amazing 4 years. We really have, first of all, the numbers tell the story. 6,000, there you go, 6,000 units of affordable housing produced or preserved here in the District of Columbia. Yes. That is an investment of close to $500 million in housing production trust fund dollars, a commitment the mayor made during her campaign and in her first term to have $100 million a year baked into her budgets, and she did it, and we've been able to produce the housing based on that. Also, I will say that we've also very much recognized that it's not just about producing new housing, but preserving existing affordable housing. And so the mayor created a housing preservation fund that to date has already preserved 80 units, and another 850 are in the pipeline to be preserved this year. A big accomplishment on preservation. We also have to encourage our first-time home buyers, have increased the size of the HPAP, Housing Purchase Assistance Program, and for district employees, the Employee Assisted Housing Program, increasing the size of those loans so that we can have first-time home buyers in this market here in the district. Another accomplishment. And then also, we've been able to really look at preservation by taking advantage of a law that's been long on the books, and we've created the regulations for what's known as DOPA, the District Opportunity to Purchase Act, which together with our TOPA, Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, really provides chance for tenants to be able to preserve their existing affordable housing with help from the district. And then I will say that last and certainly not least, and something very, I know our mayor is passionate about, and I am as well, and the fact is our human services cluster, together with the housing cluster, has been able to actually do what you've heard, close DC General, and in doing so create short-term family housing, and from the housing department, 800 units of permanent supportive housing for our homeless families and individuals. It's been a great 4 years.
You've talked about the 6,000 units that have been produced, but Deputy Mayor Kenner, I'm interested in getting a little bit of understanding of who we've produced the units for. If you can talk about the types of residents that have been served.
Yeah, that's the, excuse me, that's the, I think the most important thing is that this isn't just about projects. This is about the impact on people, and that's people all across the District of Columbia. And I'll just lay out some of the projects that we've done, but more importantly, the people that it's touched. We had the Plaza West project, which I think is the first community housing specifically for grandparents raising grandchildren. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being here. We had an opportunity to address something that we hear a lot about in the District of Columbia, which is larger family sizes. We were able to break ground on the St. Elizabeth's East multifamily project, which is going to have larger size units for many of the larger families that we know need both workforce and affordable housing in the District of Columbia. We know that we need increasingly affordable housing in our high amenity areas, so that's not just thinking about some of our more undeveloped communities, but literally everywhere in the city. And so our RL Christian project, which is a 100% affordable project, located right over here on H Street, which is a rapidly changing neighborhood, was a great addition for us. We've been able to make lots and lots of strides around the New Communities program. I think this is one of the first times where we've got all 4 of the New Communities sites moving at the same time. We're able to not only celebrate the groundbreaking, but also the ribbon cutting for 5201 Hayes, located in Ward 7, which is going to be great replacement housing for the Lincoln Heights Richardson Dwellings New Communities site. And we've also got great housing for veterans and seniors. And I know one of the projects that the mayor wanted to make sure that we kept very square in terms of our focus was at the Walter Reed Army Medical Site. So we were very happy to be able to break ground on senior and veterans housing for that great project in Ward 4. And one final one that I'll mention, which has a bit of a sort of personal interest for me, as Polly said, the effort by the mayor to think about homelessness, and particularly family homelessness, was literally unprecedented, I think, for the city. I think the mayor had a goal, not just for her administration, but really a viewpoint for DC values, which is that we need to be focused on how we can effectively eradicate family homelessness. And I was one of the people who went to those first meetings back in 2005 or 2015 at Ward 8 for that short-term family housing facility. And it was a tough crowd, let me tell you. It was not a given that that was the strategy. And I think that it not only was a sell that we needed to do, but more importantly, it was having people understand that we literally took this so importantly that we were going to put it everywhere. It wasn't just going to be in one part of the city. We literally were going to have it happen everywhere. And I was very happy to see that not only did we celebrate the beginning of that, but the opening of the Ward 8 short-term family housing facility for family homelessness. So for me, that was a particularly important milestone for us, and I think something that's emblematic of the commitment that the mayor and the city have had for homelessness.
So that's a lot of work and a lot of units, and it comes with a price tag. And Director Donaldson, you talked a little bit about the almost $500 million that we've put into it. But Sheila, I'm interested to hear from you about what it takes to finance these projects and what the role of the private sector and partnerships are in making it successful.
Sure, thanks. Well, first of all, there's no secret that affordable housing is expensive. And that's primarily due to the increase in construction costs and now rising interest rates, which is making it a little bit more challenging. But I will say this administration has provided a number of different financing tools for both for-profit and nonprofit developers to help offset those costs. There was a recent WMAU article that cited the district is the region's biggest spender on subsidized housing by far. And I'll take one further. DC did more per capita in the nation, which is huge, huge. So. Having the administration continue to invest in affordable housing just shows the investment community that we're committed. DC is committed, and this administration is committed to developing more affordable housing. And then you mentioned public-private partnerships. That's critical to funding affordable housing. So just a few examples of that. We'll start off with a program that the mayor implemented, I believe it was last year or the year before, the Oramenta Newsom Fund, so $2 million pre-development fund for nonprofit developers who are challenged with, they want to develop affordable housing, but they, quite frankly, don't have the finances to do it. And pre-development costs are difficult to obtain. So through this fund, the nonprofits can obtain or secure pre-development financing, again, which has been a real challenge for them going forward. Some other programs, probably Director Donaldson mentioned the Preservation Fund, $40 million fund, which is available to develop affordable housing developers for acquisition and pre-development financing. There's a community, the continued investment in the Housing Production Trust Fund, and even in home ownership. There are programs such as HPAP and DC Open Doors that also helps to offset the cost for financing.
Great. Well, we have certainly, it sounds like we've done a lot over the last 4 years, but Mayor Bowser did share at her inaugural address, we have more to do, and we have to think bigger. She shared ambitious goals for us to think about, for the region to produce 240,000 units by 2025, for DC to produce 36,000 units, of which 12,000 will be affordable, and that's 10,000 affordable units in the next term. So these are big, bold, ambitious goals. I'm very interested to hear from the panel how you think we'll get this done.
Well, I can tell you, Andrew, that having goals, first of all, is what is going to be able to drive the work that we do and bring in the additional private investment that will work with the leveraged public funds on that. When we talk affordable housing, we also are really talking about housing affordability in our communities, in our neighborhoods. And the fact is, we really have to focus across all income levels, from our most vulnerable, very low income, to also those who are working families and working individuals who need the workforce housing, that missing middle that we are not necessarily as focused on but need to be, because really we need the overall supply of housing in the district to increase, and that is where the mayor's goal so clearly identifies that. I will also say, and this is echoing Deputy Mayor Kenner, every neighborhood in this city can be part of the solution to our affordable housing needs. And that means every neighborhood, every part of the city can participate, can be able to say, yes, welcome new affordable housing projects, new housing projects across the income spectrum. We are going to need to do more and do so with big ideas and creative ideas to make that happen. And we're looking forward to partnering with neighborhoods across the city.
I'll go. Regional. Washington, D.C. is not alone. We sit really in the middle of what is about a 5 million person metropolis. We, as has been said before, we spend in Washington, D.C. the most regionally, and frankly, per capita, we spend the most nationally. But we know that we are not alone. People who need quality housing don't care about whether it's Montgomery County or Washington, or care about whether it's Fairfax or Loudoun. They're looking for quality housing. The mayor, I think, has been fairly clear that she wants for the region to start to embrace affordable housing more. This is a regional issue. It is something that not only have we started to hear more and more from residents in the region, but we're hearing it from external people. We're hearing it from employers. We're hearing it from all kinds of folks that are thinking about this Washington region, that having housing that is affordable is important to them. The three numbers that Andrew gave, this region between now and 2025 needs to produce 240,000 new units of housing. That's a lot of housing for this region to be able to produce. And in order to do that, we're going to have to challenge our neighbors to really step up. I know that we have started to have some conversations with some of the regional organizations, the Washington Housing Initiative, and so forth, about matching money that we would put forward. I believe that the mayor is one of the first mayors for the National League of Cities to be heading an affordable housing task force nationally around the importance of housing and how important housing is for Washington and for cities. And we know that Director Donaldson and Director Trueblood are a part of the housing and planning directors committees for the Council of Governments, COG, to help the region think increasingly about housing. And so, this is our pitch to be able to say, Washington, we're going to do our part, and we need for the region to also step up so that we can continue to be a competitive place and a place that houses everybody.
So I have maybe 2 or 3 different suggestions. First, finding a way for the DC residents to build and create wealth through home ownership. So I think we need to focus on that, and there continue to be a big push on that. Forming strategic partnerships in line with that. For example, the DC Housing Finance Agency has what we call the Housing Investment Platform, a HIP. It's a program, an equity fund that where we partner with developers who want to build affordable housing in the district. So certainly doing more of that. And then finally, just increasing funding tools available to assist affordable housing developers develop more affordable housing, not just on the rental side, but also on the home ownership side as well.
Great. Well, I think we have a lot to accomplish and a big call to action. So thank you guys for your thoughts, and let's look forward to the next 4 years.
Good evening. I'm Amy Morrow. I'm Chief of Staff at the DC Fire and Emergency Medical Services Department, and I'm here with members of our public safety team, including Clinton Lacey, who is Director of our Department of Youth and Rehabilitative Services. Peter Newsham, who is Chief of our Metropolitan Police Department. And Michelle Garcia, who is Director of our Office of Victim Services and Justice Grants. So we're going to talk about public safety, and we've made some tremendous accomplishments in the area of public safety during Mayor Bowser's first term. We've got our state-of-the-art forensic lab, which is working effectively to help solve crimes. We've invested in our 911 call center in additional call takers and dispatches, and changed our dispatch system to be more effective. We've improved our cardiac arrest survival rate by training citizens in CPR and improving our EMS patient care. But we're facing a challenge right now, and it's something that's on all of our minds. It's a challenge that Mayor Bowser mentioned in her swearing-in speech a few weeks ago, and that is the spike in homicides that we saw in calendar year 2018. So we've talked a lot today about giving everyone a fair shot, and that can be hard to do when people don't feel safe in their neighborhoods, or when everyone doesn't have the same opportunity to live a long and productive life. So tonight we're going to talk about how we as a team are working together to address this problem and to prevent violence. You know, when you talk about crime and public safety, people frequently start with talking about policing and the law enforcement response. But tonight we're going to talk more linearly, starting with prevention and moving through law enforcement and how we cope with the trauma of violent crime. Mayor Bowser has worked with the council increasingly in recent years on prevention. One example of that was the investment and creation of the ONES office, the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. And that's an office that brings wraparound services to at-risk communities and to people who have been victims of violence. Another prevention strategy, of course, is engaging with young people who have entered the juvenile justice system. Director Lacey, talk to us about what you've done and what your plans are to engage this population and try to make them more productive members of society in the future.
Certainly. And thank you so much for having me on the panel with this my distinguished colleagues and the distinguished audience. Yes, you know, at DYRS, it's our mission to rehabilitate and to prevent young people from further delinquent acts or, you know, future adult criminal acts. So that's our charge. And so we approach that through a restorative justice lens, through a trauma-informed lens, where we're building resiliency, we're building youth to take responsibility, accountability, and ultimately mastery of their thoughts, of their behavior, of their actions, of their lives. And so that's the work that we do. And so we focus on helping young people to build their self-worth, self-esteem, self-respect, their internal locus of control, their coping skills, their conflict resolution skills, which is critical to this conversation, the skill of choosing friends and peer associations, their leadership skills so they can make wise decisions and navigate situations that could potentially be violent or dangerous, to make good decisions, to become role models themselves. So we teach our young people, even though they're court involved, that they can be leaders. And so we pour that into them. But of course, our young people don't live in a vacuum. And so our work with our individual court-committed young people has to also touch and reach and embrace their wider circumference, their ecosystem, their families, their friends, their peers, their neighborhoods, the village that we all talk about that it takes to raise our children. Our work is not just about focusing on our court-committed young people, although that's our primary charge. We have to embrace the whole village. We have to embrace the environment where our young people live and where so much of the violence is taking place. It's been our experience and our view that too much of the violence that's taking place stems from generations-old beefs and conflicts. That's not even about drug money and turf in that sense. It's about identity. It's about revenge. It's about retribution. It's about hopelessness on the part of young people committing these senseless acts of violence against each other. And our young people and their families have been touched by it, and the whole community has been touched by it. And so our work then to address our young people's rehabilitation, but to address this larger issue of violence in our community, has been to go to those communities, go right into the face of the heart of the issue, to engage people who have potential to engage in these acts. The ONES office does that. The ONES office profiles those who are with the highest likelihood to commit violent acts or to be victims of violent acts. And there's a correlation between that because usually the people committing violence themselves have been touched by it. So the ONES office does that, which was, I think, a major achievement of the administration to create that office. We've partnered with them through our credible messenger work where we go into the community and we find non-traditional leaders,
some people who themselves were formerly incarcerated, formerly involved in the streets, formerly involved in the negative behavior, who have transformed their lives and now are making real impact into the lives of the young people and others who are committing crimes or who are at risk for that. We've even gone into the jail, into the Department of Correction in a partnership, because so many of the people coming home from jail have a high potential to become involved in this cycle of violence as well. So we want to meet them while they're there. And we've done training and development to teach them to be credible messengers. Those with the credibility because of their shared life experiences and proximity, but through their leadership and demonstrated skill and compassion and commitment to peace, to engage all of those who have the potential to become engaged in violence. So I would lastly just say, if I may, that this work, and we're going to hear from my esteemed colleagues, and certainly the chief speaks well for himself, clearly and passionately about this issue. But I think that, and we believe, that it's unfair to the police and to all of us to think that just a law enforcement effort can do the whole job. We believe that our police need our back. We need to support law enforcement efforts, and we all share a responsibility in this, right, together. And
Absolutely.
I think that's the message that the mayor has made very clear, and that's the work that we're carrying out.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Director Lacey. And so turning to Chief Newsham and MPD, we know prevention is one of the tools in our toolbox, but can you talk to us more about enforcement? We know that there are a lot of illegal guns in our communities. We know that we do need to cope with the issue of repeat violent offenders. Tell us what MPD is working on in the short and long term on these issues.
Yeah, I want to start by thanking Director Lacey for saying this is not a police issue, and it totally is not a police issue. But we have enough data that we collect in the police department where we can be very precise about what we're doing with communities with regards to violence. So what we need to do is we need to take that data and we need to be precise with our deployments, but we also need to get our federal law enforcement partners engaged. We have federal law enforcement task forces that work all over the District of Columbia, but they're doing what they want to do. We need to get them to do what we want them to do. Yes, we do. We need to have the federal law enforcement task forces focus with us on stopping the shootings that are occurring in the District of Columbia. And the root cause of our homicides and the spike of our homicides, it's the shootings. The shootings have remained consistent. More people are dying as a result of those shootings. So we all need to roll up our sleeves and focus. We need to get our federal partners engaged on this. I talk about it all the time. Illegal firearms are killing us. We are going to continue our efforts to get illegal firearms out of our community and to focus on repeat violent offenders. And when you talk about illegal firearms, it's not just the guys that are out in our community holding these guns, but how are these guns getting into the District of Columbia? Yep. We do not manufacture firearms in the District of Columbia. The firearms are coming in largely from Virginia and Maryland. They're coming in through straw purchases. They're coming in through these gun shows. And we need to do a better effort at MPD to get involved in stopping that from occurring. When you talk long term, we are finally coming to a point in the police department where we're coming out of our retirement bubble. Those of you who have heard about our retirement bubble, it's really kind of put pressure on us and prevented us from increasing the size of our police department. We're coming out of that. We are going to have, Mayor Bowser, a Vision 4000. We are going to have 4,000 police officers here in the District of Columbia. We are going to take those additional officers that we have, that we get, and we're going to put them out into the communities that need them the most. We're going to put them out there on foot. We're going to put them out there on bikes, and they're going to engage with the community. That's going to build up our intelligence capacity, but it's also going to be able to build up trust and respect with the community that we serve, which is very important. We're going to continue to do the things that we do at MPD every single day. We're going to continue with all of the programs that we're involved in, our Community Engagement Academy, our Expeditioner program, our Officer Friendly. In each one of those groups that we have at MPT, those are specifically designed so people can understand the police and build relationships with the police. beginning in elementary school with Officer Friendly, running through high school with the Expeditioner program, and going to the adults in our Community Engagement Academy. And then the last thing that I will say, when you talk about building legitimacy, hats off to Mayor Bowser with regards to the cadet program. The cadet program, since I have been chief, has increased from about 30, and it'll be 100 this fiscal year. So we'll have 100, and for those of you who don't know what our cadet program is, it's 100 kids who grew up in the District of Columbia. They're going to go to the University of District of Columbia to get 60 college credits. They will be working part-time with MPD while they're going to school, and they're going to matriculate into becoming police officers on the Metropolitan Police Department.
That's great news.
And Amy's giving me the time signal, but the last thing I will say, and I see some folks out in the audience, we are hiring. If anybody is interested, go online, mpdc.dc.gov. We'd love to have you.
Thank you, Chief Newsham. When someone is the victim of a serious assault, a stabbing, or a shooting, my agency, the DC Fire and Emergency Medical Services Department, plays a critical role in preventing the next homicide, and we do that by providing fast and effective EMS care. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes to talk about our role in this issue. And these are our most critical EMS patients, trauma patients. For these patients, speed matters. So we need to get to them quickly. We need to keep our response times low. We want to make sure that ambulance or that fire apparatus in your neighborhood, which is frequently the first responder in a serious call like this, gets to the patient as quickly as possible, gets those patients to the hospital. And how we do that is fairly simple. We need our resources to be available to do that. And in 2016, with Mayor Bowser and the council's support, we started contracting with AMR to provide transport for those non-emergency basic life support patients to hospitals. And what we've learned is there is still a lot of AMR patients who are very low acuity patients who don't even necessarily need to go to the hospital. So this past year, in 2018, Mayor Bowser took what we believed was the bold step of supporting Chief Gregory Dean, our fire chief, and Dr. Robert Holman, our medical director, and launching the Right Care Right Now nurse triage line. And that nurse triage line connects very low acuity callers to 911, say people with a headache or flu-like symptoms, and provides them, if they're eligible, with non-emergency transportation to a neighborhood clinic. Now, we've been at this for about 9 months, and we've looked at the data, and what we're learning is that of those patients who we speak to, and we call all of them within 24 hours, they're having a very positive experience, much more efficient experience, just a better overall healthcare experience, getting to a clinic and getting home within the hour. Much better use of their time and healthcare resources than taking an ambulance to the hospital. So bringing it back to what we were talking about, violent crime and the homicide rate, we're going to continue these efforts to strengthen our EMS system in 2019 by expanding the nurse triage line. And we'll be out in your communities in February and March talking about how we plan to do that. Moving right along to Director Garcia, if you can help us wrap this up. I mentioned our patients, so if we give them good care, they come home from the hospital. Obviously, being the victim of a violent crime is a traumatic experience, and it impacts victims, it impacts perpetrators and our community at large. So talk to us about the role of your office in addressing this issue, which Director Lacey touched on earlier, of trauma-focused policies.
It's been great to hear different people, not just in this panel, talk about how important addressing trauma is. It's not just a public safety issue, but it's also an education, a workforce development. It is critical when we think about people moving on the pathway to the middle class. For many, that pathway before that has to be a pathway to healing. Because when you're hurt, when you're traumatized, when you're in crisis, it impacts every part of your life. And from our perspective, the work that we do at our office, we see that in many different places. We obviously see that with victims of crime. We know when someone has experienced a violent crime or any type of crime that has a traumatic effect on them, their family, their community, and often that's layered on previous trauma experiences, community trauma, generational trauma, historical trauma. We have to be thinking about this extremely broadly in all the places that this touches. And so so our work is really looking at how do we touch those who have been victims, how do we touch those who have also committed acts of violence, and those who are at risk for committing acts of violence, and recognizing those are not mutually exclusive populations. And the common thread in all those populations that we see is the trauma piece. And so how do we effectively recognize and respond to the trauma, to the folks who walk through the doors of our agencies, our organizations, that are our neighbors, that live in our communities? Because from our perspective, trauma is not just about individual healing, it is a social justice issue, and we have to respond with that social justice lens. So much of our work focuses on connecting people with those really critical services. So for victims, creating, under the mayor's leadership and with her support, a single point of entry for all victim services in the district. One place where any victim of crime can go to get connected with any type of service, whether it's crisis intervention, trauma-specific mental health services, legal services, medical forensic care, through the DC Victim Hotline. And that is a resource for everyone in the district. 1-844-4HELP-DC, 24/7 via phone, text, and chat. So that resource is important. But then also looking at how we're partnering with our other agencies, the work that we're doing to support the efforts in DYRS, the Department of Corrections and the work that they're doing around trauma and the populations that they're touching, the work that we're doing in schools around addressing trauma in those classrooms, and shifting our response to children from what is wrong with you, child, to what happened to you, child, and making sure that we are treating what those kids are coming into those classrooms with to make sure that we are putting them on that pathway to healing, giving them, their families, their neighborhoods, those critical supports. Fundamentally, what we know, what all of us on this panel know, is hurt people hurt people. And when we address that hurting, we can not only heal that person, but we can prevent future violence and future harms in all of our communities.
Thank you. That's a strong note to end on. This is a very strong team. I feel honored to work with you, and I just want to say in closing that one of the things we learn in public safety is that we need the community to work with us to be successful. And so I understand that, you know, twice the number of capacity seats registered to attend this event, which I think is just a strong indication of how committed everybody is to this administration and to dealing with some of the tough issues that we're dealing with. So thank you for coming, and thank you very much for your contributions.
Welcome to Mount Vernon Place United Methodist Church as we gather to pray for our mayor as she begins her second term in office.
And by our presence, we pledge to show up and to shore you up for your next 4 years of service.
Coming up, the new year brings an historic swearing-in ceremony for Mayor Muriel Bowser.
As the first woman ever to be re-elected as the mayor of the District of Columbia.
And I will faithfully discharge.
And I will faithfully discharge.
The duties of mayor.
The duties of mayor.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I do not view a second term as a chance to warm the seat, but to think and act boldly as we work together to take on our toughest challenges. We will continue to make you proud. May God continue to bless each of you, and may God bless the District of Columbia.
Good evening, everyone. I am Bria Snell.
I'm India Skinner.
And I am Michaela Sharif.
And we are the S3 Trio. It is our pleasure to be here today at Mayor Bowser's second term outlook. Today, we are proud to join the DC residents all over as we reflect on the last 4 years and hear about the priorities for the next 4 years. From the first woman to be re-elected as mayor of DC, Muriel Bowser.
As many of you know, we were finalists in a prestigious nationwide Nassau High School competition. In fact, we were the only all-black women team in the competition. We developed a unique method to help purify lead-contaminated water after we noticed some of our school drinking fountains could not be used. During the online voting portion of the competition, we were confronted with racist attacks, focused on ensuring that we did not win.
While we were all upset by the incident, we pressed on and eventually came in second place. We were comforted by the support of our families, friends, the faculty and staff at Banneker High School, and even Mayor Bowser, who awarded us a $4,000 grant to continue our work. Today, we are still thankful to Mayor Bowser, not just because of the $4,000 we received, but also because of her support of the diversity and inclusion of underrepresented communities in fields like STEM.
In fact, we developed our water filtration system at the Inclusive Innovation Incubator, also known as IN3, which Mayor Bowser opened in 2017. We are also thankful for her strong support of our school, Benjamin Banneker Academic High School. Where we have learned so much from our teachers and our peers and are prepared to be leaders in our community, just like our mayor. As we ready to leave Banneker and continue to work toward our goals of becoming doctors and scientists, we will always remember Mayor Bowser's support and her focus on ensuring that DC is a diverse and inclusive city for everyone.
Please join us in welcoming our mayor, Muriel Bowser.
Well, good evening, everybody. Let's hear it for the S3 trio. Please have a seat. From our Benjamin Banneker Academic High School. I am just thrilled to see you all here, and I am thrilled to be here again, our 5th time at Gallaudet University here in Ward 5. Thank you, Gallaudet, for always hosting us. And we are continuing a tradition of looking back. We promised in 2015 that we would set bold goals and practical ones. And we would tell you every step of the way how we were doing. Some of those reports are monthly or quarterly or annually, but you could rest assured every January we would be here at Gallaudet to tell you exactly what we've been up to and exactly what we have to do still. It was my great honor to raise my hand again, following in the footsteps of Marion Barry and Tony Williams in becoming a 2-term mayor in Washington, D.C. And we were able to do that because of a very talented team of people who have worked with us over the last 4 years and a very committed Washington, D.C. The people of Washington, D.C. across all 8 wards embraced us, engaged us, challenged us, pushed us, and elected us again. And for that, we are very grateful. But I want to acknowledge just many of the very talented people that have helped us get this work done. You saw tonight leading our panels, moderating our panels, members of our 2nd-term working group. Let me tell you a little bit about that. The first time I had the opportunity to be mayor, we had a transition committee, many of you served on it, of 300 people, 6 groups led by wonderful co-chairs who helped develop our policies for our first term. This go around, I said, we are going to look across the agencies of our government, some directors, some managers, some frontline workers, and ask them to help shape our second term policies and framework. And I want to acknowledge them for the wonderful work that they have done. Would members of the second term working group please stand? Thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge my wonderful senior team. We affectionately call them the Big Four in our administration. And let me introduce and thank them for their remarkable service. Rashad Young is the city administrator for the District of Columbia. Rashad is, of course, responsible for the day-to-day operations of delivering services and delivering on all of the things that we promised the people of the District of Columbia. And I want to thank him for his day one service, 4 years and counting. Let me also acknowledge our senior advisor, Beverly Perry. Beverly Perry is here. Beverly provides strategic advice to the mayor and has stood up our Federal and Regional Affairs Office, our OPLA, and the Office of the Secretary for the District of Columbia. Let me also acknowledge the mayor's legal counsel, who is responsible for legal advice to the mayor and all executive agencies, Ronald Ross. Give Ron a big round of applause. Thank you, Ron. And Ron became the MOLC, I guess, late in the I don't know when, mid last year, but in March. But Ron has been with us also since the beginning of our administration and now serves as the MOLC. And let me introduce John Felchicchio, the mayor's chief of staff. And John is responsible for helping me implement our big vision across all agencies of DC government and all of the things that we have promised you. You also see out in the communities my representatives, the wonderful deputy mayors of the District of Columbia, and I too want to acknowledge them for their wonderful leadership and work. Kevin Donahue is the deputy mayor for public safety and justice. Thank you, Kevin. And Kevin is also the Deputy City Administrator. Brian Kenner, who you saw earlier, is the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. And Paul Kine, who is new to our team, is the Deputy Mayor for Education. And Wayne Turnage is the Interim Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services and the Director of Healthcare Finance. And Brenda Donald has been serving as the interim DMGO and also the Director of Child and Family Services. Other members of our executive team who, of course, provide financial and legal advice, CFO DeWitt and Attorney General Carl Rothstein. Give them all a big round of applause. We have a lot of opportunities to talk about what's ahead. Today, I really want to spend tossing out some questions. At the budget engagement forums, I want to hear more from you. Before I move on, though, I want to acknowledge one of my best friends on the council, Anita Bonds, who is here. Give Anita, at-large council member for housing, a big round of applause. So we know that in 4 years we have been able to accomplish much. And one very significant lesson that I learned was if you're going to get it accomplished in 4 years, in one term, you better start in the first year. And that's what we learned when we decided to close DC General and open short-term family housing. We started in 2015. That's what we learned when we made one of the biggest investments in Ward 8 to create an entertainment and sports arena and have it open at the end of our first term. We started in 2015. And that's what we know about our investments. When we said that we were going to transform our small business investments and double the amount of those investments in a 4-year term, we started planning our Green Book in investments in 2015. So the reason why you're here today is to help us think about those things that we would have accomplished at the end of our 4 years and start them in 2019. Are you with me? So that is what we're here to discuss. So let's talk about transportation, for example. You know, I don't know where you live, but sometimes it takes me too long to get downtown. What about you? I don't know, but I know one thing, Dad, that this city is just getting bigger and bigger, right? 700,000 strong. People live, work, and dine and play in places that they never have. And so we have to be very focused on how we get around this city. So if we are to make significant changes in how fast we move, how much it costs, how safe it is, what are we willing to do to get there? Are we willing to prioritize some of our corridors just for public transit? All right. Does that mean you're going to take those cars off of 16th Street? All right, that's the question. Are we going to look to add bus routes in our city? Should we think about adding additional school transportation in our city? Is there something else that you want to do? More bike routes, car-free days on different corridors? Because these are the questions. You see, Chuck, what we have to deal with? There is no low-hanging fruit. They're all tough questions, and some of them will involve trade-offs. You're going to have to give up something to get something else. Are you with me? What are we willing to do to close the achievement gap? What are we willing to do? Does that mean I have to invest more over here and less over here? Does that mean I have to push this faster and this pause for a little while? Does that mean that I have to reimagine vocational education in the District of Columbia? Does that mean that we have to challenge all of our business partners and council partners to reprioritize 2-year and 4-year education at the university level? Yes. So we have to do all of those things to get our kids, our students, our residents ready for the jobs of our future. Does that also mean that we have to make investments in companies to move here? Because we have to continue to create the jobs that will provide incomes that provide DC sustaining incomes. Are you with me? Now, are you willing to say that every person who's born here and raised here and chooses to live here should have a pathway to a middle income in Washington, D.C.? So that means focusing on how we do adult learning and connect our Department of Employment Services to our University of the District of Columbia and all the universities that serve our students. It also means making sure that we're looking at those early years from 0 to 5, that we're keeping families in the District of Columbia by making sure we have quality, affordable child care in every ward of the city. And that's what we intend to do. In part of the changes that we're making to our organization is aligning those lifelong learning goals and workforce goals in our education cluster. So with that, The WIC, our Workforce Investment Council, and the Department of Employment Services will now be in our education cluster, which we know is a good thing. Now, let's ask ourselves, what are we willing to do to cut gun deaths in half in the District of Columbia? Many of you have had the unfortunate experience of living in a neighborhood, of having a loved one involved in a violent crime. I get, unfortunately, devastating communication anytime someone is killed in the District of Columbia. So we know that as a city, we won't tolerate violence escalating in our city. We also recognize that it is an approach that requires police involvement, human services involvement, and community involvement. And we are very focused on doing what we need to do to get there. The chief already talked to you about how important it is to make sure that we have a police force that is resourced, that is trained, and reflects the values of Washington, D.C. And we have been very focused on recruiting D.C. residents, and we will get to 4,000 in the next 4 years. And the chief is also committed to make sure that those additional officers are not closed up in their cars, but on foot, on bike, on segways, all across the District of Columbia. We also have some tough questions to ask ourselves about building more affordable housing. There is not a single bigger issue in the District of Columbia, but we also have to be willing to think bigger, and we have to challenge, not just us in the room, but we have to challenge all policymakers who will weigh in on these ideas. How can we get more units? How can we, in some cases, where it makes sense, make our buildings taller or more dense? How can we make sure that we are making it easier for the development community to get permits when it comes to affordable housing, just as easy or even faster as with luxury housing? How can we make sure that our tax codes make sense and don't penalize the construction of affordable housing, but incent it? These are the types of questions that we have to ask ourselves. And just like we learned with constructing all across the city short-term family housing facilities, that the affordable housing problem is not just a Ward 8 problem or a Ward 7 problem or a Ward 6 problem. It's an all 8 wards problem. And so all 8 wards have to be a part of the solution. So I've charged our team with looking across the city and setting goals for each part of the city to reach so that we can reach our goals by 2025. I've also charged our team with making sure that we're looking every single day at how DC government can be more seamless, easier, more personalized, and deliver services for our residents in more efficient ways. But I gotta tell you, on the heels of a 10-inch snowstorm, I'm pretty proud of how DC government is operating. Let's give them a big round of applause. So one way that we're going to improve service delivery, and we're very focused on wards 7 and 8. I feel like we have a unique opportunity in our city right now to do the most for communities that have had the least investment in the history of the District of Columbia, and we intend to do it. I am going to transform our Deputy Mayor's Office for Greater Economic Opportunity, and I'm going to widen its focus. It had been focused on DOES and DSLBD, which are very important, but also citywide responsibilities. And I want to focus them completely on Ward 7 and Ward 8. We're going to create a new office, the Office of the East of the River Services. And this office, under the direction of the city administrator, will be responsible for marshaling the resources of our entire government for people who live in Ward 7 and Ward 8. And I'm also pleased to announce that the new executive director for the office is Tim White. Tim, please stand up. Tim is currently serving as the Chief of Staff at the Department of Employment Services, and prior to that, he had been serving in agency coordination in DMPED and Brian in the Deputy Mayor's Office for Planning and Economic Development. He's a resident of Ward 8, and he is looking forward to getting started on Monday, I guess, on Monday. And I'm also very pleased to highlight a few other of our team members who have worked hard from day one in our administration and are taking on new responsibilities. And Lindsay Parker is another person. Lindsay Parker will become DC's first African American Chief Technology Officer. Congratulations, Lindsay. You also heard from Andrew Trueblood, and Andrew Trueblood will be the first millennial to direct the DC Office on Planning. And another person who's come up in our administration is taking on a new role, and I'm pleased to announce the appointment of Delano Hunter as the director of the DC Department of Parks and Recreation. And I am looking forward not just to working with these directors in their new roles, but with just an incredibly talented cabinet. We have a lot of big agencies in DC government. You probably don't realize that there are about 70 people that run an agency of various sizes. I don't get to see them enough or spend enough time with them, but I get to see their work every single day, and you do too. So I hope you will join me in showing appreciation for all of the members of the Bowser Cabinet. So I just want to say a couple of more things about new initiatives. I see Tommy Wells here, who has been an incredible leader of our Department of Energy and the Environment, who has helped DC become the first LEED Platinum city in the world, which is a great honor, but also a great responsibility to keep innovating and to keep leading the world. And this week, with members of the council, I will sign into law one of the most forward-thinking pieces of environmental legislation in the nation. It will allow us to get one of our signature green initiatives, the Green Bank, off the ground, and moves us closer to reaching our sustainability goals. And it's also very important for us to keep our eye on this important transportation infrastructure and sustainability work. And for this reason, we will be creating a new cluster of work of agencies in our government that will work as a team on transportation, environment, and the operations of our city. So we will tell you more about a new deputy mayor for transportation and infrastructure. So I'm excited about that. And finally, I want to mention another very important piece of work. Many of you participated, many more than we actually thought, participated in our first ever Infant and Maternal Health Summit back in the fall, so that we could focus on women's health. We, of course, have a focus on making DC healthy across all categories, and we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of tools to get there, including having 97% of our people insured, including improving our fire and emergency response to incidents. But we know when it comes to chronic illness, we have a lot of work to do. And we also have work focusing on healthy moms and babies. And for that reason, we will create a Thrive by 5 coordinating council, and part of their work work will be infant and maternal health, but they will also focus on what we need to have thriving babies and families and kids ready to learn at the age of 5. So stay tuned for our work on Thrive by 5. So I continue to thank you for your support. I invite you to look in the next 3 months about all the opportunities to engage, including our open house that will be at February 5th at the Wilson Building. Each of the clusters that I have mentioned, our deputy mayors and agency directors will all be there at their offices to meet you, to talk to you, to hear from you, and you can hear their initiatives as well. This February, we also start the important work of our budget engagement. This budget, remember I said the things that we get done in this term start this year. So this budget will really lay the groundwork for what we are able to get accomplished in the next 4 years. So I hope that you will participate in budget engagement. And then, before I present the budget to the council, I'll have the opportunity to let you know about the state of the District of Columbia, where we'll lay out our priorities for this year, the term, and for the future of the District of Columbia. God bless you all.